Special thanks to our patron Carlotta. Thank you for the continued support. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing, and enjoy.
Prologue. I bow over the lovely young woman's outstretched hand as I agree to assist her. As we ride together, I see the sunlight halo behind her head, hearing her sweet laughter as she smiles hopefully at me, believing the world is full of possibility. But unfortunately, her hope is misplaced. I watch as her face crumples in tears. Not the restrained, dignified sniffles that I would have expected from someone of her standing. Instead, the tears are great gulping sobs that rack her thin frame, threatening to break her in two, just as her heart was breaking. I had been taught to remain neutral, but it is difficult to see the poor young lady react so violently to the news. But what had she honestly expected? I tried to calm her, to comfort her, even though it isn't my place nor my business. I hold her firmly by the shoulders, speaking in a low, soothing voice as if she is an easily spooked animal. The wild look in her eyes begins to settle. The tears begin to slow. I breathe easier. It will be all right now. Then, without warning, her hand shoots out toward me. I instinctively recoil, expecting to feel the sting of a slap. Instead, she grabs the hilt of the dagger sheathed at my belt. In one swift motion, she draws the knife out and plunges it into her heart. Her eyes never leave mine as the light fades from them. I scream. Or, at least, I think I do. All I know is, my mouth is gaping open in shock as she falls gracelessly into my outstretched arms. Her blood is everywhere. On my hands, my arms, splashed all over the front of my shirt, pooling on the floor beneath her crumpled body. Her now sightless eyes are still fixed on me, accusing me, forever, that I could have prevented this needless death. Couldn't I? I came out of the magically induced memory doubled over, gasping for air, even though I wasn't bound by enchantment or by any physical means. No, I was just bound to the Lady Rosemary through my memories of my failed commission. "Thank you for allowing the council to see that once more," a deep, gravelly voice above me said. "I know that isn't easy for you to relive, over and over." The voice recalled me to where I was, in my home country of Orchwell, standing before the kingdom's other governing body, the Council of Seekers, on day 10 of what seemed like a never-ending trial. My trial. Because my commission had ended so brutally, the council had called me before them, repeatedly going over the events that led to Rosemary's death. This was the 5th time I had had to relive the memories of what had occurred. While the memories were painful, they were nothing compared to the possible futures before me. Depending on the council's ruling, I could be stripped of my seeker ability, which at best meant I would lose my livelihood, and at worst meant I would go insane. Or they could even sentence me to death. I didn't know which was the better outcome. My breathing now under control, I looked up to regard the seated members of the Council of Seekers. Pelham Ravenwood, head of the 7-person council, regarded me from his place at the center of the raised stand where he was flanked on both sides by the other council members. I recognized some of their faces. Elderly Madame Canestra, her white hair piled high on her head as she turned her shrewd brown eyes on me. The former knight, Sir Lantley, a lean, athletic man with silver-streaked black hair, and Lord Olivera, the Queen's cousin, a bulky, solidly built man with long blonde hair that he often wore tied back from his face. He was at least a good 5 or 10 years younger than his peers on the council. Orchwell's ruling king and queen were the ultimate authority in our country, but they tended to delegate many of the day-to-day affairs of governing to the Council of Seekers. It made sense. Orchwell's royal family was, by design, one of the few families of nobility that did not have the seeker ability running through their veins. Or, if any of the royals did, it was often an extremely weak ability, akin to a minor magical skill. If anyone in the direct line of succession showed a strong aptitude for seeking, they weren't eligible to inherit the throne. There were too many headaches as a seeker, and in my world, heartaches, to wish upon a future king or queen. Orchwell needed their rulers at home in the kingdom, fully able to focus on their duties. Which was another reason why the Council of Seekers existed. Several of those on the council were members of the royal family who had been ineligible for succession. The rest were former seekers who had since passed on their duties to other family members, but still wanted to serve the kingdom in some way. Members of the council weren't paid, but would occasionally receive monetary gifts from the crown. Pelham Ravenwood was a rare combination. As the king's fourth younger brother with strong seeker abilities, he had actually been allowed to pursue his seeker career since he was never a strong contender for the Orchwell throne. Being a part of both worlds gave him remarkable insight and made him a formidable leader, which helped him earn the position as head of the council. Pelham turned to Lord Oliveira. "Well, as you were the one who requested Kaernan go over his commission yet again, are you satisfied with what you saw?" Lord Oliveira tapped his chin thoughtfully. He was wearing an extravagant wide-brimmed red hat with a silver feather. As he nodded, the feather nodded in time with him. "It was thorough, to be sure, but it didn't give us any new information. It would be nice to have another perspective on the situation." I ground my teeth, pressing my lips into a thin line to stop myself from blurting my thoughts. Of course my story, rehashed multiple times, wouldn't have given the council new insights. The only person who could give the council another perspective is dead. While I hadn't expected much sympathy from the council during my trial, I found I really disliked Lord Oliveira. The man seemed to enjoy torturing me, asking the same questions repeatedly, making me relive the commission over and over before the council, and casting doubt on every move or motive I had during Rosemary's commission. I already had recurring nightmares about it, and had barely slept for the last 4 months since returning home with the lady's death on my hands. Besides my nightmares and insomnia, I was constantly on edge from not exercising my seeker ability. Seekers had to use their gifts regularly or potentially go mad, and I had been denying my gift for several months. And pre-trial, when I had to undergo the council's intense process of magically sealing witnesses from talking outside of the courtroom, I had barely recovered from it. So I was definitely not in good physical or mental shape right now. And Lord Oliveira's attention to detail, as he called it, although I would have termed it otherwise, wasn't helping me. I firmly believed that the council would have come to a decision about my fate much sooner if he hadn't been present. "Perhaps we could pause the hearing here and meet again in 10 minutes after we get some refreshments," Madame Canestra smoothly interrupted Lord Oliveira. "These old bones can't go for much longer without some sustenance." "But I, for one, agree with Madame Canestra." Sir Lantley also cut off whatever Lord Oliveira was going to say. "A short break would do wonders to clear my head. If we could just—" "Sir Lantley, you agree with me? Now that is a first. Pelham, did you hear that? Have the council secretary note this day, for it truly is a momentous occasion. Sir Lantley agrees with me." The twinkle in Madame Canestra's eyes as Lord Oliveira's face grew mottled red with rage told me she knew exactly what she was doing. I almost felt sorry for Lord Oliveira. Pelham Ravenwood sighed. After spending a few days with the council, I had a vague idea of what he had to put up with on a daily basis. I ducked my head so the council members wouldn't see my smirk. "Who would like to continue the hearing?" he asked the group. Only Lord Oliveira's hand shot up. "Who would like to take a short break?" Everyone else, including Pelham, raised a hand. "All right then, the majority has it. We will take a break and reconvene in, about 10 minutes. Pelham looked at me then, really taking in my haunted eyes and drooping shoulders. "And then we will decide on the fate of Kaernan Asthore." Chapter 1. Let it be known to all that I, Kaernan Asthore, really, really hated love. It wasn't because society expected young men of my age and status to find love silly, unnecessary, or inconvenient. It wasn't even because I saw, all around me and all too frequently, people blissfully happy with their soulmates, their one true loves. No, I hated love because in my experience, it usually involved death, or worse. If I was involved, it was definitely, or worse. The sound of approaching footsteps pulled me from my gloomy thoughts. Their echo against the wooden floor vibrated in my skull, causing my day-long dull headache to spike. I squeezed my eyes shut against the pain as a young woman's lilting laugh floated gently my way. "There you are!" It was the voice of my twin sister, Kayla. I opened my eyes to see her dark brown eyes shining as she smiled down at me. She pushed her long black hair away from her face, so like mine, but softened in her round feminine features. "I just got home from the Villain Commission. Can you believe it took 3 weeks? But at least we have another happy patron, and—" She stopped, really getting a good look at me. "Are you all right?" I started to shake my head, then winced as the headache pulsed again. Kayla sat down next to me, rubbing circles on my back like our mother used to do when we were little to soothe us. "Rough night again?" she said, indicating the circles under my eyes. I sucked my breath in between my teeth, forcing the word out. "Yeah. I keep seeing Rosemary's eyes in my dreams. Wild, hopeless, accusing, dead. I'm afraid to sleep anymore. Once night falls—" "It's been a month since the trial, Kaernan," my sister said. "Longer still since— well, I'm surprised you still have the nightmares. The council said it wasn't your fault. Rosemary was mentally unstable. The rigors of travel and the commission had set her over the edge. You were not responsible for what happened." The words came out in a rehearsed rush, a well-worn argument Kayla had used repeatedly on me to try to make me feel better. But even though I wanted to wholeheartedly agree with her, a small part of me kept insisting, "You could have done more. You could have stopped it." "Aren't you glad they didn't take away your seeker ability?" I shrugged. "I don't know how I feel. I'm sure the council thought they were granting me some small mercy by letting me stay a seeker. But perhaps the real mercy would have been to take away my gift permanently, and with it the chance that I could ever hurt someone again." Kayla stopped rubbing my back and instead pulled me to her, hugging me fiercely. "Don't ever say that. Orchwell— no, the whole of the gifted lands needs your ability." I shrugged again, effectively removing Kayla's arm from around my shoulders. I turned away, trying to pretend I didn't see the hurt look in my twin's eyes. She pressed her lips together. "Have you talked to Father or Mother about it? Maybe we should fetch the doctor." "No." I hated how weak I sounded, but the restless nights were definitely taking their toll on me. "I don't want to alarm Mother. And Father thinks I should be over it by now. It's easier to just avoid both of them when I can." Speaking of avoiding them." When Kayla used that tone, it usually meant trouble for me. Warily, I said, "What?" "I saw Father right when I walked through the door. He sent me to find you. He wants to talk to both of us." I groaned. "Oh, do we have to? Can't you tell him you couldn't find me?" "I'm sorry," Kayla said again, and sighed heavily, wincing as if she herself were in pain. It was quite possible she was. As twins, Kayla and I had a sympathetic connection, often sensing each other's feelings and physical presence. "Come on." Kayla stood, grabbing my hand and turning to go. She stopped short. I hadn't budged from my spot. Turning back, she dropped my hand and sat down next to me on the wooden window ledge. We sat in silence for a moment, until my thoughts spilled out. "I can't do this anymore, Kay. I know I'm dangerously close to the madness. If I don't use my ability soon, my mind will break. But I can't handle the outcome of my commissions. They often end poorly. I wish there was some way I could just be rid of my gift for good." My shoulders slumped. I turned away from my sister to face the wall, not wanting her to see the tears that threatened to fall. "You're the one with the proper gift, Kayla. I'm just an aberration." Kayla threw her arms around me and pulled me close. "That's not true." It was a well-worn argument from my sister, but after all this time, and all my failures, her argument was showing its wear. Fading sunlight through the window illuminated a golden tassel that adorned the braided rope tying back the heavy red curtains. I reached out, absently flicking the tassel back and forth in my hand. I remembered a time, many years ago, when I played hide-and-seek with Kayla, using these very curtains to shield myself from her view. Not that I was ever successful in hiding from her, thanks to our bond. Life had been so much simpler then, before Kayla and I had come into our gifts properly. Kayla gently took the tassel from my hand and tugged me to my feet. This time I let her. "Come on," she said. I followed, unhappy but unresisting. Kayla moved quickly down the familiar hallways, me on her heels. Our hurried footsteps echoed on the wooden floors, even as the tasteful tapestries and family portraits on the walls blurred past in our haste. Stately and elegant, the Asthore family manor lay near the palace in the kingdom of Orchwell, just on the border of the merchants' district. Our family had a long and storied history of seeking in Orchwell, making us one of the richest and most revered families in the kingdom, second only to the monarchy. Of course, it helped that even the royalty of Orchwell occasionally sought out the Asthores for their services, because who didn't want to find their true love? In the Gifted Lands, Orchwell was known as the Land of Seekers. If you needed to find something, you came to Orchwell, where even the lowliest citizen possessed the ability to locate what you sought. But Orchwellians weren't hunting dogs in human form. Depending on a patron's needs, the finder would have to solicit a specific group or family, as certain abilities ran only in certain bloodlines. One Seeker family was renowned for its ability to find dragons. Another famous Seeker clan had built its reputation upon finding other families' lost fortunes. For a fee, of course. But they were very popular, as so many people were convinced they had a spectacular destiny. The Asthore family was known for its ability to find a person's true love. We weren't matchmakers, exactly. More often, a patron just wanted to find their perfect match and didn't care about their future beloved's background. But occasionally, a patron had specialized requests, such as needing a good love match who also happened to be a good political alliance, and they would bring those specifications to an Asthore seeker. The Asthore seeker found the person's perfect match every time. Each successive Asthore generation, drawing on the wisdom of their predecessors, was more gifted than the last. My sister and I were still refining our abilities, but we had already showed immense promise. Indeed, Kayla was so talented that she was taking on commissions instead of our father, Lord Asthore, even though it would be at least 4 or 5 more years before we were considered fully trained seekers who could take over the family business in earnest. But what made Kayla such a formidable talent was the same reason that I hated the family business. Stopping in front of the plain wooden door that led to Father's study, Kayla knocked. She barely waited for the deep baritone on the other end to say, "Enter," before she pushed the door inward. She sailed into the room confidently, with me reluctantly following behind. Father stood to greet us. As Kayla moved eagerly into Father's arms, I realized with a start that I was now taller than my father, who had always seemed to loom over me. When had that happened? Sunlight illuminated the gray that feathered Father's temples. The crow's feet at the corner of his eyes deepened when he smiled and embraced his daughter. Kayla stepped back so Father could greet me. "Look who I found," she chirped. Neither Father nor I made a move to close the distance between us. "Good, you found him," Father said warmly to Kayla. He nodded to me. In a voice just a shade colder, he said, "Son?" I nodded back in an equally chilly manner. "Father?" Kayla flopped down on the leather love seat in front of the fireplace. I followed suit with less abandon than my twin sister. Kayla was acutely aware of the tension between Father and me, but she often was at a loss as to how to handle it. While our mother, Lady Adallia, tried to play the peacemaker between the two men in her life, Kayla chose to ignore the issue, hoping that if she pretended all was well, then it would be. While I appreciated her optimism, I sometimes wished my sister would take a stronger stance in regards to the family dynamic. Father would listen to Kayla if she truly wished to exert her influence. Father sat down at his desk, angling his chair so he faced Kayla and me. "Children, another commission has come our way." Kayla clapped her hands in delight. Father smiled indulgently at Kayla, but turned his gaze on me. "This one is for Kaernan." I couldn't help it. A small groan escaped my lips. Kayla's happiness dimmed a bit as she gave me a sympathetic smile, but Father frowned. "You're not still upset over what happened with that Rosemary chit, are you?" he asked me. It honestly couldn't have gone any other way," Father said dismissively. "You did your job. What the client does next is no concern of yours." "That's a bit callous to say, don't you think, Father?" I said hotly. "Really, Father, it was a most unfortunate situation," Kayla said at the same time. Father slammed his hand down on his desk, hard. The echo of the slap stunned us both into silence. "When will both of you learn?" he said sharply. "A commission is just that, a commission. We may help people find the one they are fated for, but there is always a choice. People always have a choice. Our family is proof of that. The sooner you understand that, the happier you will be in your careers as seekers." Maybe I don't want a career as a seeker. The thought came unbidden to my mind, startling me with its intensity. The room suddenly went deathly silent. I looked around, at my sister's horrified stare, at my father's cold and steely gaze. I realized belatedly that I had actually spoken those words out loud. "You don't really have a choice," Father said. His tone left no room for argument. "But you just said," I began. "In your private affairs, yes," Father said. "But when it comes to seeking, no. No seeker has a choice about accepting their fate. You know that. But there must be, you will take this commission, and you will fulfill it to the best of your ability." Father's jaw worked back and forth, and his breathing was heavy, like he was trying to keep himself under tight control. There was a knock on the door, which was still slightly open. A servant's voice sounded timidly through the small crack. "Milord, there is someone here to see you." Father stood. "And here is your new patron now, Kaernan."
Thanks for listening. This has been the prologue and the first chapter of Heir of Memory and Shadow, now available on Audible, Barnes & Noble, or wherever you like to buy books, ebooks, and audiobooks. If you liked what you heard, consider picking up a copy anywhere you buy books and leaving a review. Reviews go a long way in helping indie authors. Thank you so much.